All right, we're going to call this Star Workshop, Star City Workshop to order at 6:30 on Tuesday, February 21st. I'm sorry, it's 22222, right? February 22nd, 2022. I appreciate everybody for showing up here tonight. This is our third workshop, I think our final workshop for now. I understand, right? We'll schedule another one to follow up, okay? Okay, we'll follow up on transportation later. Just so everybody's aware, March 1st public hearing is not happening. That has been canceled, and it will be noticed as soon as we find out when we're going to have that hearing. I appreciate all of our agencies that are here tonight with us. This Willowbrook project is a pretty good sized project, and it's important for us to get information out on the table on what we expect from the agencies and the applicant and whatnot from the city. We've had meetings with our transportation agencies, our fire and police, and tonight we have, I guess, Lumen is new for me, but it's CenturyLink, right? It's now called Lumen. So we have some representatives from Lumen here. We have Idaho Power here. We have our applicant. We have Republic Services, our trash and recycle services here. We have Intermountain Gas. We have our postmaster, Mr. Mel, here, and fire chief's here again because we're going to talk about interland. Is it called urban something fire? Urban interface fire. Huh? I will. Yeah, I'm going to say so. What? I know. Okay, so urban interface, chief.
Wildland urban interface.
Yes. Okay. So when we're speaking in the microphone, I'm going to have everybody go around and introduce themselves. And I also have my Pathways committee here as well. There's John and I got two others sitting over here on the side. So I'm going to have you guys go and state your name and what company you're with, and please speak into the microphone. Turn the light. You got to have to hit the button and turn the light on because we have people online watching. I think we've had up to 40 or 50 folks in the past watching this. So, okay, so we'll start right here. With
Hello, Brett McKinney. I work for Lumen. I am the engineering construction manager for the state.
Okay.
I'm Evan Barnett. I'm business development manager for Lumen Quantum Fiber as well, which is a residential.
Oh, good.
Our residential branch, which is what would be going in here. And you know, it's CenturyLink. So
yep. Perfect.
Paris Dickerson with Idaho Power. I handle economic and community development for the capital region, which obviously includes STAR.
Hey, is there anybody else here from
Just
Idaho
me
Power?
tonight.
Just you tonight? Okay.
Nate Mitchell, Willowbrook Development.
Yep. Okay. We'll come over here.
Bob Olson, Republic Services. And Bob Bennett, also Republic Services.
And we have Miss Klein back here with Republic as well. Okay.
Mel Norton, Postmaster Star.
Carrie Schmidt with Intermountain Gas Company.
Okay.
Greg Tominski with Star and Middleton Fire Districts.
All right. And we have our council members, Jennifer Samuelson's here, and Kevin Wheelock is here. And then Mr. John, you want to introduce yourself for the committee?
John Tenson on Star Transportation and Pathways Committee.
Okay, thank you. And I'm just going to have Nate, if you would just just let everybody know again the size of the project,
Sure.
all that kind of stuff. So we kind of.
Yeah, okay, so we've asked for annexation zoning for 1,556 acres. That's essentially along the Purple Sage corridor from Highway 16 to half a mile west of Kingsbury Drive. So 6 miles east-west, goes a mile north-south either direction of that. We've got the map in front of us. The blue area, if we look at the, I got to watch.
I think it's a green one, right? Is it on the side?
It's on. Okay, so this would be Canada that kind of dissects the property. Highway 16's here, Blessinger Road, Kingsbury Road, State Street. So we're all north. We're north of current city limits, both east and west. We've asked for an R3 zoning, which would be 3 dwelling units to the gross acre. spread out across the 1,556 acres. We're primarily focused on, if we can go to the conceptual master plan, we're primarily focused on the Ada County side, which would be the majority of this blue area here. We've drawn 1,608 residential units mixed between townhouses, patio homes, up to 1 acre residential lot, estate lots. We've also got an 18-hole public golf course and about 110,000 square feet of commercial, a lot of which is, I don't have it in there. Look, see, I'm smart. So our clubhouse area is kind of center mass of this conceptual master plan. We've got some commercial in that, and we've got some commercial kind of at the intersection of Purple Sage and Canada. This would be more neighborhood commercial. This is going to be gathering place around the clubhouse, restaurants, boutique retail, stuff like that. We do have a lot of density stacked into the middle of the golf course with townhouses and patio homes. And then we transition into single family residential, bigger lots as we get closer to the existing 1 acre lots. So this is where we would start our development, which would be all east of Canada, all west of Highway 16.
And then, how many lots did you say, Nate? I'm sorry.
1608 in the Ada County side of things is what we've asked for. Obviously the R3 at 1,556 acres adds up to like 4,662 houses. But that includes all of that Canyon County property if the zoning were granted.
And that's, so that's pretty significant, right? When you look at Star, I think we're right around 5,000 or so homes right now. So I guess, oh, and I forget, sorry. Our planner is here. I forgot to introduce him to Sean Nichols and Ryan Fields, our assistant planner. And Ryan Morgan's our city engineer up here as well. So I don't know if we want to start with, who do you want to start with? Do we want to start with urban interface, or do you want to just go utilities? You guys got dinner to go to quickly?
We're good.
You're good? So we'll just start with you guys at Lumen and stuff on what does this look like, and what are we going to need to do to make sure that this is serviced up here in this area? Oh,
Yeah, we need to know the phasing, I'm sure you've got it split up in your planning zone 1 and then where you're going to start and how it's going to flow. That's the biggest impact.
Sure. And
We've got facilities, and we need, plan.
is that on by chance?
I think so. You just gotta eat it, right? Yeah. So really, we just need to know, where we're gonna come in, right? So where to bring fiber facilities in. We're on Canada Road and we've got Highway 16 too, but it really depends on you.
so we kind of see the center mass of this development starting at Purple Sage and Canada, moving east to begin with as we build through this conceptual master plan we're talking about. And then the stuff that's west, planning areas 2 and 3 or who knows?
You just made me very happy.
Okay.
So this question then from your standpoint, is the current Hillsdale residence serviced by any fiber or anything like that up there?
I don't know. You're talking about here in the
Yeah, so the little gray areas that are within,
So like all of this is already built residential. There's about 380 lots up there.
I don't
think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't, so our current business model requires an agreement between the builder developer and us, a handshake, right? Just literally a signature to say, yes, we're interested in you coming in. If we didn't have that signature, then we don't have facilities in. It's really that simple. It's just like if we were going to build on your house, build your house, we'd either have to have the order, which is a commitment saying, or a right to use to be in your right of way. And if we don't get that, we don't go.
Okay.
It's that simple. I think I can look that up. I mean, I can't look it up right now, but I can look it up and get back with you. That's easy. The other thing I think timing wise, from our perspective, is a really good time. From a technology perspective, I'm not going to say almost all of the facilities in the Treasure Valley are sitting on a 2.1 gig uplink. The price model on the 10 gig uplink has just transitioned. So we'd be looking for the majority of a development this size at newer technology and like bigger speeds, availability.
What speeds do you think? I mean, to
Um,
start out with, I'm
from-
sure it'll change over.
Yeah, it will,
Years.
but so it's 5 times as fast on the uplink side, which honestly, I can almost guarantee that nobody in this room would ever use close to a gig. Even if they had it, they wouldn't have the computer to use it. Some of you could be hardcore gamers and are hiding it really well, but I'm pretty sure I'm right. So from a usage perspective, we can go up to like 2.1. From a service perspective, honestly, not really the issue. The issue is you'll never see congestion at the local level. And what I mean by that is you're not going to see congestion until you hit a national interface. And that has to be beyond our local caching. And our local caching is near the capital. So anything that's viral is cached, right? Anything that's watched by, thousands cached. So you're not, unless it's one off and a long ways away, you wouldn't see any.
Okay.
But you guys are happy if we start at Purple Sage, Canada. Your facilities are close. And they do serve phone service current residents up there, but there's no fiber or any real internet service up
Yeah,
there
I'm
currently.
guessing it's VDSL's internet service, which is, it's our old technology. Everything new would be fiber to the home. And that's why it's saying there wouldn't be congestion issues. And that's specifically with us too, because we peer with Netflix and YouTube and all the big boys. That's what he's saying. If it's viral, we've got it, we're housing it downtown, right? So, but yeah, that coming up, that would be a preferred route, is to come up Canada. Yeah. Because if we're coming in the side, yeah, it's easier to go one direction with the network, So you
Sure.
think of it like a spider web. Growing it out is the easiest way.
So the potential then, I guess, when we're looking at the in-ground stuff, you would run your fiber through the current conduit that they would put in for phone already? Or would there need to be a separate conduit just for that?
So it depends on when we go in. If we go in with joint trench, we oftentimes place direct buried fiber. This is going to sound silly, but the fiber cost is about the same as the cost of the conduit. So you're better off doubling the size of your fiber than putting in the conduit
Okay,
from a cost perspective.
all right.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
So, if you're going to buy a car and you can get the better model, the same price, you do.
Right.
So we kind of do that.
And could you tie off of that for the current Hillsdale folks then and reroute that through their conduit or?
So it depends on how the contract is structured, but we can. The issue is the cost of the trench and going in and tearing up people's yards, right? They don't always like that. I mean, it depends on the priority. I'm not saying it's not like, your driveway is being torn up. That's not what we're talking about. But you do have bore rigs, which they're not clean, right? They make a bit of a mess. So, that really depends on what that homeowners association or, what those people want. And, we're willing to work with them.
I mean, just if I'm looking at this, I'm looking at, 13 phases or more, probably 2. And I mean, what are you going to do? 1 or 2 a year, maybe if you're fast, maybe 2, 3. So what I'm saying is if you look at the map where we'd be starting, by the time we get over to Hillsdale, building a network out from there, it'd be 5, 6, 7 years later by the time we even get the fiber facilities to them. So if they wanted to get in on it, it would almost require a separate build from coming in from 16, and doing over, which we'll look at that, but that's like a totally different thing. We wouldn't even be considering that as part of this project. Does that make sense? Yeah, we look at new greenfield, new growth as what we're targeting because trenches are open, cost to build is minuscule, right? And it's economical. going into existing stuff requires a lot more work and effort.
Yeah. The only addition I might make to that is it will depend on, you know, what Carrie's got to do, what Idaho Power's got to do, right? From a infrastructure facility perspective, if they're coming in from the highway, then maybe it might make sense for us to jump in with. But from what was proposed, it makes a lot more sense to come off of Canada and be working west to east.
Okay.
It's simply finances, right? I mean, we've got to build it as efficiently as possible so that we're not charging you so much money that you don't want it.
Any questions here of council? Of Lumen, formerly known as CenturyLink,
West, US West.
or Quest, US West,
Yeah.
Let's
whatever,
go.
whatever it was.
Ma Bell.
To get to your point, speeds would be crazy fast though. I mean, with the XG Pond 2 that we'd be deploying here, I mean, we could be doing 2 gig to a house, so 2,000 meg upload download speeds. It's
It's symmetric as well.
symmetric, yeah. So
So
ri-
those
ridiculous.
motivated gamers who love-
Yeah, you could host, you could have a server farm at your house. Yeah.
Councilman Whitlock, you got anything, questions for Lumen at this time? Sean? Not yet? Okay,
Mayor,
yes. Councilman Nielsen,
thank you. So considering the full build out of this could be up to as much as 40 years. I mean, are there considerations that you put into place today to help address some of those future considerations?
So the future part definitely rolls into my bailiwick, right? One of the things I said early on was we regularly upsize the fiber so that we're not having to place conduit. And I mean, it's a cost model, and we definitely place enough fiber for it not to be a significant issue. Especially with this being, you know, in the plan, in the zone, it's really easy for us to make sure that we've got full capacity on, you know, a 4,000 lot build out. That I don't view that as being an issue at all. The one thing that we haven't talked about, is it possible to flip to the larger view? Yep. So there is some planned road work associated with Canada Road. Timing of that is helpful, right? The less we have to dig. You know, if we can dig once, we'd prefer that, you'd prefer it. So if we can get the timing of that kind of on the front end, that helps.
cool. So we may come back to you guys here at Lumen, so hang tight. We'll go to Ms. Paris at Idaho Power. Talk
Okay,
about the same
I
thing.
think we've got this on here. Can we talk a little bit more though about the timing, when you think the first home would come online and when 1608 would come online?
Yeah, so our timeline pending obviously council approval and things like that is we would love to start construction on the golf course in 2022. Golf course maturity is going to be a 3-year deal. It's going to be 2025. We have no plans to have lots available on the market until the golf course is matured. So summer 2025, phase 1, whether that's some townhouses or whether it's a single family residential or it's this, there's a lot of infrastructure that's going to go in those 2, 3, possibly even 4 years. Right. We're not going to go build a golf course and want to tear it back up. Same deal. We don't want to dig more than you guys want to dig. So there's a lot of that that's got to go in. If we're doing direct bury, if we're doing conduits, if we're however we're doing it, sleeves that would need to go in with the construction of the golf course, but the build out of that and lots, I don't see us having lots on the market before summer 2025.
And in terms of the first phase, how long until that 1,600 home build out? Just roughly, I'm not going to hold you to
No,
it.
understand. Crystal ball, if we did it in 10 years, I would be surprised. If it took us 16 years, we'd be doing something wrong.
So in terms of Idaho Power's current infrastructure, we do have some substations in this area rough generally, but they're not particularly close. So we've got Beacon Light, which is at the corner of Linder and Beacon Light Road. And we've got Star, which is roughly at Highway 44 and Highway 16. And then we've got our Lansing substation, which is at Lansing and Highway 44. So they're not really that close, all things considered, you know, especially if we're looking at phase 2 and 3. Even if we think that that might be a possibility, we're likely going to want to have a substation up in that area somewhere.
Yes.
And we'll likely need to bring in our 138 kV transmission line up into that area as well. But really, it's going to be a long shot to serve probably phase 1, if not certainly phase 1, 2, 3 with the existing substation infrastructure that we've got.
So what are you doing with Spring Valley that's across Highway 16?
So technically, we're not at liberty to discuss other projects yet, especially those that aren't public. But what I will say is a subdivision of this size, it would not be uncommon, especially for it to be in kind of what we would call a geographically remote area, meaning it's not fully surrounded by our infrastructure. Not uncommon for that to require a substation.
Could they use could both facilities use the same sub? Or would it be, I mean, so like a substation, how many homes does a substation usually service?
Well, there's not necessarily a number of homes per se. I mean, we're going to size the infrastructure, you know, a 14 MVA transformer, for example, would be one of our smaller ones that would serve this facility, this subdivision above and beyond what would be required. However, the bigger component to take into consideration is the distance. Sometimes you go so far away, you have line losses, and then you also run into the distribution cost being pretty significant when you're having to go so far from where the substation is. So there are a lot of operational challenges, not just associated with how much capacity that substation transformer would need to put out.
So is it feasible that we would need to design a substation in this subdivision
Or nearby.
or nearby?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah. It'd certainly be something that we'd want to start having the conversation
That
about
does not
sooner
come
rather
as a
than later.
surprise to us.
Oh, good.
Um,
A little worried.
No, I think, Mayor, your question regarding Spring Valley and this, I mean, Spring Valley's 7,200 residential units.
Right.
I think we could look at locating. This is just Nate talking, doesn't make any sense, but the intersection we're talking about at Highway 16 with a substation located along the highway with their transmission lines coming up the highway makes a lot more sense than trying to pull up Canada, trying to pull up Wing Road, trying to pull up Blessinger or Lansing, right? You've got the substation at Moyle, you've got the substation at Lansing, Linder. There's going to need to be another one to serve at some point to serve the development east of the highway and west of the highway, and locating that somewhere along the 16 corridor makes a lot of sense to us. We don't currently own that ground, but that doesn't mean we're not engaged with those landowners and have the ability to, I mean, what's a substation? 2 acres?
2 to 4.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, that's easy enough to figure out.
So just when you said, oh, good, like you were happy, they weren't surprised. Does
Yeah.
that mean that the developer pays for the substation, or does it come on the other ratepayers?
So that'll be something that we'll have to work through as we figure out more details, but it's
Yeah.
not uncommon for a developer to pay for a substation.
Okay.
So it'll depend on kind of a whole host of details that we obviously haven't worked out, but either option is still on the table, I would say. And obviously the
We
other-
fully anticipate paying at least our proportionate share for that substation, right? Like we're requiring the capacity. Spring Valley's requiring the capacity between the 2 developments and all the other development that's going on. Every time somebody takes a plat to Idaho Power, there's a fee associated with bringing power to that plat. We understand that, and we'll pay it. Or you don't get power, and then you don't have a development.
Very true. The other piece of that obviously is we'll need to, get a transmission corridor figured out. And it may be such that we, look at Highway 16 may be such that we look up Canada or some other option. So our engineering teams would look at that and kind of figure out what would make the most sense for the long-term growth plans.
Okay. Council got questions? Councilman Nielsen?
Thank you. So realizing that you can't really speak to specifics of another application, you said that's not yet public. Yeah, we have coming before us this application, and we want growth to pay for itself. At what point in time do you feel like you'll be able to talk about the specifics of that other subdivision or the other, developments and their impact and whether or not they can share fees and costs of development and things like that so that we can determine a proportionate share for this applicant?
I think if we had something from the other developer indicating that they're willing to kind of come to the table and have a conversation about what collaboration opportunities would exist, we'd be happy to entertain that. We just always want to maintain privacy of our customers and not disclose their project information without them being aware and giving their permission to do so. So I think if we are able to get in touch with the developer, it'd be great to kind of coordinate these two projects and see if there's an opportunity for collaboration between the two. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
I'm sure Nate will probably collaborate with that too, most likely, right? With them.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, looking at these developments, particularly the size of this and the size of Spring Valley, coupled with all the 40, 80, 120 acre developments that are going south of us. I mean, really to answer from my perspective, Kevin's question of when, as we're processing plats and require service. So part of this is like, these guys want us to start at Canada. If Idaho Power is going to run a transmission service up Highway 16, they actually want to start at Highway 16, right? Like, so no, well, and everybody will adjust through the process, but it's part of that is there's capacity now in the substations we have to serve the first couple hundred houses. We're going to hit a threshold that between Spring Valley and between Willowbrook and between Toll Brothers and between Corey Barton and everybody else that's building, those substations are going to run out of capacity. And we're going to have to figure out where to build the next substation. And we're going to have to figure out who's going to have to pay for it. But that's going to happen through the process of plats and through the process. If Spring Valley's a lot better at this than Willowbrook is, and they're building 5 houses to the 1 house we build, they're going to need the power before we're going to need the power. If we're better at it, we're going to need the power before they need the power. And through that platting process, and when we take a set of rolled plans to Idaho Power and say, we want to build these 200 lots this year, they're going to say, okay, that's going to require a substation. Go figure it out. So from the city standpoint, like Idaho Power is not going to let us go somewhere they can't go. They're not going to let Spring Valley go somewhere they can't go. It'll have to happen. And I don't think there's anybody in the room or watching this or any of that can answer that question today. It's not going to be November 22nd of 2024, but it'll happen when it's supposed to happen through the process of your platting process and when we can actually go build the infrastructure.
I think those are some really great points that you bring up, Nate. And one thing that stands out to me in your sharing that is that perhaps it's not a proportionate rate that the city needs to worry about. And perhaps Idaho Power, you've got those things already figured out that, and for each connection, this is what it costs. What I think we want to drive toward is that there isn't a sudden cost that existing ratepayers now have to come up with, or an increase in rates for this area that directly ties into that. And so whatever formulas Idaho Power is using, I'd request that they take into consideration, the per connection cost for that substation.
Yeah, and that's something that Idaho Power obviously is very conscientious of as well. I mean, we can't allow growth to be passed on to all of our ratepayers, so that's why we follow that growth pays for growth model. The only other thing that I would want to mention is just that we are still kind of experiencing some supply chain issues. So a substation could take longer than we might otherwise have thought. So we'll just want to be really mindful about that and make sure that we've allowed ourselves plenty of time to get a new substation built and a transmission corridor established as well, because we'll have to get easements from all those private parties along the, whatever route is selected.
So I'm gonna, when you talk supply chain, I'm gonna flip that supply chain just a little bit to the actual power. Are we gonna have any issues with delivering power to a project like this?
No, I mean, the limitation is going to be the infrastructure that we
No,
have.
I
in
know the
place.
infrastructure. That's why I wanted to make certain that
Yeah.
the power supply itself is sufficient enough to support
Yes.
this, right?
Yeah. Yep. We're always looking at our grid. You know, we've got our 20-year plan, that integrated resource plan. We're looking at these types of projects and knowing that they're going to come to fruition. So I'm not worried about it from that perspective. It's just really that substation level.
Any other questions there, Ms. Paris?
Yes,
Where?
Here.
Oh, sorry.
on the other side of Sean.
All right, Kevin.
I'm curious, is there a way that we could encourage it to come up Highway 16 rather than up Blessinger, Kingsbury, Canada through those more residential areas?
So you're saying you would want it to come up Highway 16 and then
Take a
it looks like
transmission corridor. Is that
Yeah.
along the kind of the northern, I would call it northern boundary of this project.
Yeah.
And then drop down into it. I will certainly make that position known if that's what is the opinion of the council to our engineers. Ultimately, they're going to look at, you know, what's the best long-term solution for the grid for resiliency and redundancy. But I'm certainly happy to put forward that recommendation to them so that they can have that when they're
I
figuring
just
out
know
where to go.
those high lines are pretty invasive to the residents that are already there. And if we can come up the main corridor, that'd be better for our council.
Sure. Yep, that sounds good. I'll make sure
Thank you.
Okay.
that out to them.
Any further questions of Ms. Paris? Oh. Yeah, so Ms. Paris.
Yes.
Ryan was bringing up the Greylock challenge that we had with
Mhm.
power.
Mhm.
Is there anything that needs, if this were to get passed, that you need to get ordered now to get it here in 2 years, right? To be able to,
Yeah, it's not beyond the realm of thought that we should be getting some things ordered as soon as this project is stamped and moving forward.
but just the fact that you have this on your radar though right now helps you with those decisions?
Not really,
Okay.
because ultimately, you know, we're not going to do anything unless it's a funded project, right? We can't go out and start ordering things because if a project were to fall through, then our general rate base is going to have to pick up those costs.
So in reality, if the council were to approve it, that's basically between you and the applicant at that point.
Yes.
And it
Yeah.
may delay the applicant's project just because of supply chain issues.
She's
right?
not gonna order anything until I write her a check.
That's about
To
it.
Paris Dickerson.
Preach the skids.
We're the same way. I mean,
Same thing,
Yeah.
same thing
Right,
here.
yeah,
right.
no, I mean,
Okay.
So once everything is approved, I mean, the sooner that we get the go-ahead to start doing some of these things, and we can certainly start doing some things out of what we would call our traditional order. You know, we can go to a procurement agreement and start making sure that we've got those long lead items secured, and then we can continue to do the study and all of the design work and whatnot. So there are options to make sure that we don't run into that. And obviously, the fact that we're having this conversation right now is a step in the right direction.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Having it on their radar is good, but
Mhm.
like, I say, and I don't care if you've got a 2-lot subdivision or you've got a 4,000 lot subdivision. None of these utilities are gonna do anything until we write them a check.
Right on my check. Okay. Cool. Any other questions, Ms. Paris, before we're going to jump to Ms. Carey with the gas side of it? So we'll have you pull that up to you so everybody
right.
online can hear you too.
You said I'm supposed to get right there, right?
okay.
So the good news is, in 1994, Intermountain Gas put in a 4-inch service line on Deep Canyon. And it pretty much follows Deep Canyon from Highway 16 all the way out to Purple Sage. So that's a good sized main, you know, pretty well fed. It already feeds the existing subdivisions. It was sized appropriately, so we've got a good lead on that. And that loops around, again, all the way around Deep Canyon and then out to Purple Sage. Feeds those existing subdivisions. So really the only gap for us is right around that Canada section. There's a gap there. So what I would foresee is maybe the possibility that as that develops, or if we need to, we start feeling that load, that there's a requirement to maybe make that connection in order to support and, build
So
up
when you're
the-
saying a gap, you're talking from Canada at Foothill to
Yeah.
Canada at Purple Sage.
something right around, I think between Purple Sage and, probably in that same gap there somewhere. Which may
And
be
you're talking about having to loop lines in order to have enough capacity.
just to, build that support.
Okay.
Mhm.
So with that 4-inch main, then you're basically saying that 4-inch main can supply this with what's up there now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we've got a good reason to believe that would support it very well.
Wow.
She's also saying that there's a potential, if we need more capacity, we would have to loop into the gas mains that are at like Craftsman Estates and
Oh, down
and
below?
the stuff that's servicing your city now.
Exactly. So it might
Um,
not be in front of your exact development, but in
Correct.
order to supply that development, we would need to extend a line somewhere.
And that
And that-
could be coupled with sewer extensions. It could be coupled with reuse water extensions. There's going to be a lot of stuff that goes up and down Canada that could couple with, frankly, everybody that's.
Yeah,
I mean,
and certainly, like you said, if there was a reason that we were opening up the road right there, that might be an excuse for us to come in and say, hey,
Yeah.
joint trench, let's go. Let's take
Okay.
advantage of that. So I think we always want to be aware of anything that's happening like that, just given the opportunity, certainly things like new roundabouts, new roads are always good time to get in.
Right. You guys have any questions of Miss Carrie? That's interesting that that's already there.
I can tell you who built that line or who paid for the line.
Was that
That would be Willowbrook Development.
development? Okay. Kevin?
I'm just learning how all this works. And basically what she said is he's gonna write her a check. Is
He's
that-
gonna. so we got a
In
check,
summary.
a
We
check,
we have a
and
common
check.
theme with the
Funny.
utility companies.
So far.
Privately. funded.
Mr. Wheelock, anything further? Okay. Well, that was quick, Carrie.
Yeah, and I think the big, again, the benefit of joint trench. So as we come in and do each of the phases with the development, we'll take, I would imagine, full advantage of trying to do anything we can't joint trench to get that shared cost in there and again, be efficient. So yeah, good news.
Awesome. Okay, so I'm gonna jump to the trash. The Republic.
You're gonna make Melvin wait till the end.
Mel, we love Mel.
All right, there we go. So just want to make sure, right now, we've got about 3,000 existing homes and we're looking to add about 1,600. So get up to 4,600 in total project, or I have that wrong?
No. So right now you've got in this geographical application area, you've got about 450 existing homes. We're asking for approval of an additional 4,662
That's the
homes.
additional, so that's about 5,000. Okay, got it. Yeah, I think from our standpoint, the annexing of about 500 existing homes is not rocket science. We can do that relatively easy. We may end
And I
up,
think you're already serving that.
but we're servicing a big chunk of that.
Yeah.
I think when you start talking about deploying, because it's going to take place over time, that makes it a little bit easier. So for us, getting carts, we're about 90 days out, give or take. Same with drivers, and just based on the total number, we're looking at somewhere between, 2 trash routes, recycling, depending on what kind of services you guys want to have. And then we need to know about the businesses. Our biggest challenge right now is trucks. So supply chain issues, getting trucks and parts, the further out we know. And so if you're looking at, 2025, that should be enough time. Once we know it's a go, we can do some backwards planning. That's probably our biggest challenge right now, is getting the trucks. The other thing just to kind of keep in mind over time as you're building this out, we would love to work with you on that. As communities like this get built out, if you've got a lot of businesses close to each other, do we want to install compactors and try to do things that make it cheaper?
Yeah.
And then you're talking about townhomes and things like that. You start getting tight access where our larger trucks don't get into. We would love to collaborate on that, because that becomes a safety issue for us and the public. But outside of that, I mean, this is, especially the time period we're talking about here, we got plenty of time. And, we roll it into existing contract, it becomes part of STAR. It's not rocket science.
Right. So I'm gonna roll back a little bit on you here. When you're talking about the townhomes and stuff and the safety issue, what the collaboration, what does that look like?
Yeah, so.
What does that mean?
Yeah, so one of the challenges we run into in markets where we built homes that are close together like that is they have really tight turns.
Mhm.
And our large, side load trucks can't make those turns. And we end up having to go get trucks that are half the size, which are double the cost because of all the road time. You can't fill them up as much, and that affects that whole cost structure. Plus the safety side. We do a lot of work with our drivers to be professional drivers. When you've got 2 inches on each side of your truck because of alleys and things like that, like human error, we're going to have problems.
No, and
The way we can avoid that.
well, I guess what I would say up front is that in this density where we've got townhomes and patio homes and everything inside the subdivision, I would envision more dumpster collection areas, not individual. I don't need 58 carts in an alley.
Yeah. And again, we'd love to sit down with you on that because we run into this in a lot of the existing, communities where we don't have enough swing room to back in and back out.
Right.
Where there's parking spaces right by those containers. And so again, it's just kind of, if we can do that up front, makes it easier for everybody. But no big
Hey,
concerns.
Miss Rick, you come speak in the microphone is all. Hang on, she's loud too, but she can
I know everyone here knows my
just
voice
state your
carries.
name too. for everybody.
Rochelle Klein with Republic. And a good rule of thumb is just if the chief can get his fire trucks in there, then we can get trash trucks in. So as long as he's.
So
gonna
let's
have-
make it all the chief's fault.
Yeah, we blame it on the chief, but as long as we can do that, that helps us.
Yeah, we collaborate a lot with the fire departments in all the cities when it comes to the planning of the subdivisions, so. If he can get his fire truck turned around, I can get my trash truck turned around.
Any current concerns on landfill space or anything? Or where-
That's a huge topic.
Yeah.
And just in general, I mean, it's all part of the whole process too, so.
Yeah, so we draw our line, Canada Road, Canyon County doesn't want Ada County trash. Is there right now, a lot of trash is going into Ada County right now, so we're not gonna see that. But over time, yes. I mean, over time, Ada County should be talking into this, over time with the amount of growth that's in this area, that is a concern with Ada County, and it's a concern for us too, and we're willing to be part of that solution.
Okay.
But
And
Canyon
the solution
County,
is a lot more recycling, I think, right? That's what it's composting and things like that, right?
everything is on the table. Canyon County, for the stuff that would be on that side, there's 1,000 years of life out there. We're not worried about that at all.
Okay. Awesome. Any questions?
Do you have a preferred road width?
He's a crane driver, just
I
so you
like big
know.
roads. I drive with my outriggers out, so yeah.
So I would say with most of these new subdivisions, that standard road width is what, right around 24 feet?
36.
36. Yeah.
Okay. Which is plenty enough, even if you do allow some curb parking for us to get in and get carts if we need to do with the side loads, things like that. As far as the commercial development, it's more about planning the enclosures for the approaches, the turnarounds, enclosure type and size to right size, whatever dumpster we're gonna put in there so that we don't damage it, tear it up. It has a longevity.
Yeah.
We've been doing for many years, so.
No, and I don't envision us, there's a couple areas we've talked about, some private roads and things like gated portions of this community, but I don't see us requesting necessarily any waivers from your standard road widths.
Yeah, and if you don't mind, one thing, looking at, some of the cul-de-sacs, having enough room to turn around safely, backing up in a trash truck is the devil.
Turns out the fire chief's gonna make me big enough.
There we go.
Yeah, so if you can turn around in their cul-de-sac size, you're good, right?
One small piece. You said you were gonna have some gated. Please make sure those are very clearly called out for us. It's a big deal when we don't have lines for your gates.
You're talking about for gate controls? Gotcha. Okay.
And they're forgotten
Very good to know.
just about every time.
Very good to know.
All right.
Mayor Chadwick.
Yes, ma'am.
So who pays for the new trucks? Is it through the service of the new homes or?
Yep, so carts, the carts based on the number of them, we're looking at somewhere north at today's rates, 150 grand. Carts are about, or trucks are about 400 grand a piece. When we sit down and do the math, that's similar where you're talking about paying with the growth. When you add up the rates of all the homes, we have a math equation there that pays for that. So that's our business. We pay for it up front, it gets paid for in the rates, and it all should work out in the end.
Okay, so it's not passed on to our existing
So
residents.
I like this concept is make the growth pay for itself. And based on the number of residents and the timing, it's a math equation.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any further questions of Republic Services? All right, we'll come to you, Mr. Mel. I know Mel is planning on walking this entire thing if it gets approved,
Yep, exactly.
right?
Yep.
So talk to us about the post office.
All right, so I was actually at the last hearing and we've talked a little bit about it at this hearing. The biggest thing for us, the post office, is the time frame. I mean, we're 3 years out before we even start the first house. We're constantly deciding to change how we do things sometimes. So, we used to have the single mailbox. Now we prefer the CBUs. We're in the middle of doing some new route evaluation systems. Once that takes place, I'm not quite sure what that will mean as far as changes for us. But we will have, see, is that a lot of this, like some of this up here on Canada, we're already delivering free mailbox. So any of these homes that are facing Canada, they may be a single mailbox, just because the way that it works there. But all of this new stuff here, all of the fingers that are coming down, this high density here, that would definitely all be CBUs. The thing about it too is, as the development goes, we'll get one plat map and then 2 months later we'll get another plat map. So as far as what we'll do there, it's just depending on what phase and how it comes and stuff like that. The one thing I will say is gates, because since you did bring it up, our current national policy is we don't pass gates. So if you have a gated community, the mailboxes would have to be outside of the gate. And then anytime you have a gated community and you do CBUs outside the gate, parcel lockers, the people that buy those homes are probably going to be upset if they have to come to the post office to pick up all those parcels because we don't have parcel lockers for them to get delivery to. So the thing that I noticed, if we can go to the overall roadway traffic plan map versus this one, the thing I like about that and something I would like to see is if some of this could come to fruition, because with that wing development there and with the Blessinger, I could almost see myself maybe breaking it up into thirds as it was developed, deliver to the existing homes off of wing, hit some of this new development here off of Canada, and then again, some of that existing that's already there on Purple Sage and some of that deep canyon through that Blessinger. So I like these throughput roadways that will, I think, help us determine and establish some new deliveries. With this many deliveries, I anticipate at least 2, if not 2.5 more routes for our facility just based off of this development. Not anything else, of course, that's approved or built here in Star. So I would like to see those, if anything, if there's a possibility those can come along with the phases, that again, that would help because like I said, I see third and that up there and having Blessinger being made, Canada and then wing being just, that's dividers and ways that I could easily access those areas up there and divide my routes. Let's see. Yeah, and that's, realistically, the time frame's the thing is we're gonna go from phase 1 to phase 2 to phase 3, then we'll just kind of work it. A lot of CBUs, like I said, that's just kind of the way that, at least now, that the post office is wanting us to approve delivery and establish new delivery to homeowners. And so I don't necessarily see anything in that boat changing. Like I said, we are going through a fairly large reevaluation of how we evaluate the size of the routes and how much they deliver and how big they are. So in that 5-year, because like you said, 3 years until we even start looking at homes, because we're doing the golf course in 3 years. We just have to look at it and see what the post office is doing as far as delivery, and then go from there and start addressing phases. Any of those wings, any of that, we just would want to make sure that we have a good idea of good common area where we can put those CBUs up. People can get to their mailbox easy. We can deliver easy. And same with the Republic, safety. I don't like a lot of my mailboxes near playgrounds, because playgrounds, kids play, safety issue for us. So a common area free of playgrounds is always nice for us for CBUs and stuff like that.
Mr. Mel, can I ask you a couple questions?
Sure.
real quick? So where does the 83669 line end up here in this? Or is all of that up there that was proposed?
So
Well,
if you
but-
want to go to the one with the blue, red, and yellow, can't remember. So
That's Blessinger, the.
yep. So Blessinger here. So technically, this red would be Middleton. I don't know if we'll come to terms with Middleton to determine if they want us to take it or not. But if you look at our zip code map, which you can see online, we actually originally didn't even deliver Purple Sage. It was not part of the Star matrix, but Middleton and Star talked it over, and we took that on. All of the yellow is Middleton, and we would have nothing to do with that section of the development. That is hard Middleton. So Blessinger is a very big major divider for us. And then 16 is our hard. And then up north of this, we kind of go at an angle. I can't remember the name of the road because we don't deliver anything.
Chaparral.
Chaparral. Yeah, Chaparral. If you follow Chaparral to 16, that's my cutoff. Anything north of Chaparral and west of 16, that's Middleton. So basically Middleton and Eagle, they come over the top of me, and I'm just this little section in between them. And then above them, that's all Emmett.
Can
So
you
we
feel
are a
that?
very small,
Can you feel that
realistically,
love,
a very
Chief?
small zip code zone compared to Eagle, Middleton, and Emmett.
So and this is all a national thing, and the switch zip codes and all that, right?
Yep, that is, we're dealing with it a little bit now. You've got the Moon Valley sub and all of that. It's not ours. It will not be ours. The post office has made a firm line. We don't really involve ourselves in annexation, what cities want to do, how cities wanted to annex, develop. Our zip code boundary is our zip code boundary. You can go online and look up zip code boundaries. There's several different websites out there. If it's outside of my zip code boundary, you will need to talk to the postmaster that is dealing with that section of the zip code boundary.
Okay. And then would it be feasible to put an annex up there in that area in Willowbrook where the golf course is in that area?
Probably not. I mean, right now, our biggest issue is Middleton is in a very similar situation as we are. So their current plans, or I should say before we switch districts, the plans that were being discussed is actually a big annex in between the two cities where all the carriers, both Middleton and Star, would go to. And they would start their delivery from that location and come back to their designated cities. With the location where we're at now across the street, there would probably be maybe one or two carriers that stayed in there just for delivery reasons, but most of your carriers would go out to that annex. They have not in a long time, as you can see in Meridian, you can see in Nampa, they haven't approved additional retail locations in a lot of cities. A lot of that is they want, the Meridian people on 10 Mile, guess what? They're coming to my office. Now my revenue's going up, so I'm being more sustainable because I'm getting that revenue. If they put another post office in between us and the Meridian office, then I'm still kind of wavering in that red versus getting some more revenue and getting to be able to self-sustain my delivery here.
Any questions?
Yes, thank you. That is leading into my question of, with all these homes coming in here, do you see like a need? Our post office is pretty small, and would there be a need for that additional little PO boxes for people, or when would that happen?
So I have been on the space constraint list since 2018. That's all done on the post office's side. It's not anything that's with the cities or the counties. It's once my organization determines that they want to move forward, that's when they reach out to landowners and stuff like that and determine what the process is going forward. But I have to go through the whole process on the post office side before we even start looking at land or building or anything like that. As far as PO boxes right now, our larger number threes, we will get full on those occasionally, but we have never run out of number ones or twos for the customers if they need one of those. So as far as PO boxes go, we're not maxed yet.
Okay, so you wouldn't foresee a issue with this development for people to get a box?
At this point, like I said, just because of
What-
the availability that I've just, for the 5 years I've been here, no.
Yeah, okay.
A lot of people are only using it for businesses or possibly for letterhead for their business if they're selling online because they don't want to give out their personal address. The average person wanting to get their mail at a PO box, especially at the costs, the more that we build in this area, the rates change and we get more. We have different levels for each PO box. So like if you went to Grandview, Idaho, you wouldn't pay for the same amount for a PO box as you are in Star. Because once you start getting like a FedEx at the Walmart on 10 Mile, once you get the UPS store on Linder that sells PO boxes, then we're considered being in a competitive market. There's other opportunities for people to rent that same service or get provided that same service through an outside company. So then we get into a competitive marketplace and our rates go up. So the current rate for PO boxes, it's like I said, most people really want to have a PO box if they're going to rent a PO box.
Great, thank you.
Okay. By that time, we'll be $1 of stamp probably, right?
Possibly,
We're getting there.
but we'll still be cheaper than a candy bar. So that'll be all
That's
right.
true. It'll keep going up. Any other questions of Mr. Mel? How about Mel trucks? Do they need to be as big as your crane?
They don't haul as much as my crane.
So, Mr. Mel, just real quick, so on a development like this, we've seen some of the hitch a post style that you're approving, I think, compared to the CBU units.
Right.
Are you gonna stand fast with the CBU so we can create these clusters, or? you gonna-
If you want to go back to the master plan. So realistically, just because of the size of this project and the way that it's going to lay out, the only place I could possibly see a hitching post style is just right here. And that's because, like I said, we're currently deadheading this way down Deep Canyon to get back over here to get back to Langtree Gulch. So we don't like cul-de-sacs either for safety reasons. So we don't approve any mailboxes or CBUs at the end of cul-de-sacs. So because we're deadheading down Deep Canyon, all of these houses here that are facing Deep Canyon would probably be singles. And then because there's multiple houses inside of this little area, I might do a hitching post style there. But all of these fingers, all of this big stuff that's going to be developed, all of this dense housing here, all of it in here, that would all be CBU.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yep.
All right. Anything else from Mel? Thank you, Mel. Appreciate it. We could move on to the fire part of it that we want to talk about.
Wildland urban interface.
That's the one. My biggest concern, I've expressed this to the chief a little bit, is when we develop within the foothills and stuff, is not turning into a California style scenario where everything's burning. Right. And so that's why I wanted you to come and talk about that and what this does and what does that mean?
So currently, without Willowbrook development, we have some, without the new development, the old development has some gullies in it where now they're proposing houses in. That's the real threat for the current Hillsdale residents, is if a fire starts in there and we have zero humidity and high winds that could run up those gullies really fast. He's proposing, they're proposing houses in there, which will probably have irrigation and everything,
streets and sidewalks, which mitigates that problem in some of those. There are some areas that are probably too steep to develop that will still have wildland urban interface. And I think in the picture that's up right now that has the golf course in it, they're the ones at the very north. And then there's one at the very south towards Highway 16. I guess it's not really towards Highway 16, it's about in the middle. Correct, there. That would still propose a threat to the residences that are currently existing. And in those parcels that are not going to be developed and are not developed already, then we would ask for a wildfire mitigation plan for those areas from the developer as they get as they start phasing the development in. And then that's a third party they'll give recommendation on the plant structure, the grasses and stuff that may be planted on the edges of those, if those pieces are truly Willowbrook property. I'm not 100% sure. I'm guessing everything in here that's colored is Willowbrook property.
I believe that.
Okay.
Yeah, no,
So-
yeah, so the areas that are in the lighter green color that we're showing is left as natural open space. We would need to provide a,
Wildland mitigation plan.
Yeah.
Has to be a third party that does that.
Yep.
And it's not the fire department, it's not the city, it's not the developer, it's a third party that would make recommendations for those
So what
pieces.
triggers that? Is that something that we need to make sure that we put in our development agreement? If this were to be approved, that gets done? Or is there some federal statute or something that requires that and things like this?
There is a wildland urban interface code in Ada County.
Okay.
Working through some of the Spring Valley stuff and through some other development that Eagle has, it's part of their ordinance. I believe when they get so for us, for wildland responses, it's everything above Beacon Light Road. So any call that comes in as a grass fire with structures threatened or just a grass fire above Beacon Light Road gets a massive response of units, which comes from the local fire departments and from BLM. So even if it's nothing, it's somebody driving by and says there's a grass fire on the side of the road, if it's above that line, you're gonna get a massive response of wildland engines and potentially structure engines if it's close to existing homes to protect them. Because we do have in the middle of summer here, we have zero humidity. We can have high winds, microbursts with no water in them that can start lightning fires. I mean, there's places up there where people shoot and start fires. It is very dangerous. And we've had, not in the last few years, but previous to that, we've had some great big fires up there. They had one last year over by between, is it Highway 55 and the landfill that, that moved through that 300 or 400 acres in no time at all. And that's, we could totally have that here with no problem whatsoever. The good, if you want to find the good part of the Willowbrook development, most of the land, especially the stuff that's on the Canyon County side, is farm ground. I think all of it is farm ground so all of it is farm ground and it's covered with water and pivots and other ways of irrigation. It's everything above this development. A lot of it is BLM ground. A lot of it belongs to other ranchers and that kind of stuff that is not farmed. That's always going to be a potential for a wildland fire.
But the plan would mitigate the issues on that northern side of this plan right here, right?
Correct.
From burning back down into current Hillsdale and
Correct.
Willowbrook, right?
The other caveat to this development is if it is approved and it does annex into the sewer and water district, we're gonna have a fire hydrant every 400 feet. Currently in Hillsdale, we have a fire hydrant every 1,000 feet.
So I'm going to ask Paris a question then. The old Oregon Trail fire that I think started transformer. If a substation was being placed up there in the desert area, what steps are taken now to prevent something like that from happening in the future?
So we have a wildfire mitigation plan currently. So you most likely know that we also operate in the state of Oregon. Oregon does require us to have a wildfire mitigation plan, and so we've adopted one in Idaho as well. So we look at this area, and granted, these parcels are likely not in it yet because we look at risk to structures and property damage and obviously risk to human life. This isn't as populated, but my guess is this is already in a red risk zone. So that's an area where we're going to be paying careful attention to anything we put overhead. And we're also going to have different procedures that we would use in a high risk situation. So if we have, for example, a line that was energized, something trips it. If we're in what we call a red day, meaning we are in a red zone and we have a high risk weather event that would necessitate us being kind of in a red alert status, then we would only let those devices trip one time. Then the power turns off. We have to manually patrol that entire line to make sure that it's safe to re-energize before we do so.
Okay.
So we've got a wildfire mitigation plan that is in place, and that's only been in place for maybe a year and a half. And it's continually developed as well. So we'll continue to look at these areas of growth and what makes sense. But the fact that most of the power in this area is going to be underground, so it's going to be somewhat limited. But to your question earlier, that may also impact the route that we choose in terms of where we place that substation, where we place those transmission lines to make sure that we're choosing not only a convenient location, but the safest possible option as well.
Okay.
Mayor, if you don't mind too,
Sure.
that one fire that you had alluded to in California, it started because of a trash truck.
Oh.
They had a hot load and it was a small independent company. But just as a suggestion from our standpoint, we work with the builder to have some designated hot load areas. One of our biggest challenges right now is lithium ion batteries. And we have a handful of fires every single year. We teach our drivers to have spots on the route where they know they can safely dump it. In this area with all the grasslands, I would just suggest we work together to mitigate that risk because that could be ugly.
That's a good point. I never even thought about fires coming out of fire trucks. Or I mean, out of garbage trucks.
Yeah, so what'll happen is in the back of a truck, you'll say get a battery that starts to smolder. And the minute oxygen touches it, it'll light on fire. So we teach our drivers how to try and snuff out the load. Sometimes they can't get it out. Their next response is to keep it on a truck and go to a safe place that's asphalt. You're away from people and dump it. The challenge is when you have a driver that has had that happen for the first time and they get scared and make a mistake, they end up putting it out in grasslands. And next thing you know, you have catastrophe. So this is an opportunity, since we're building ahead of time, to have some designated areas that are safe to do that. And that'll hopefully mitigate that risk.
That's great information right there.
First tee box, dump it there.
Do it.
T-box number one.
Let's keep it in the parking lot though, because the first tee box is grass.
And that'd be called Mulligan.
Watered.
Anything else, Chief?
I don't have anything else unless you guys have any more questions about it.
You guys have any questions of Chief? Hearing none, thank you.
Wider is better.
Wider is better. I
That's
would
it.
say you guys don't have to stay if we've already talked with you or whatnot. You can leave because I know it's kind of getting late and you got stars like in the far corners of the world. But we're going to go to our our pathways folks over here. Mr. John, you have anything to add?
Yeah, is there a pointer there that I can?
And make sure we talk into the microphone, sir.
John Tenson, Transportation and Pathways Committee. Transportation and Pathways Committee has been working hard. The council recently adopted a pathways plan. Key parts of that. Which button do I push?
The green one.
Make sure it's turned on the side first and then.
Oh, there it is. Okay, yeah. So the plan envisions,
Are you pointing?
but it went off again.
The red button.
You want to hand Ryan can show you.
plan envisions a connection from the city property, well, maybe I've got to go on this one. The city parcel up through the development to the BLM parcel. And initially, we thought maybe just kind of going along the edge of the golf course might make sense, but you'd come up with your own plan. But it also envisions an east-west connection and then allow connections into the major roadways, the Wing, Canada, Blessinger, Kingsbury, and then connections to the schools. That's kind of the big picture of what we'd like to see in pathways.
Yeah, and I don't think any of that's a problem to incorporate into this. Like I said, one of the things we've focused on in the design of this, like golf's kind of leading the way right now with the design. Pathways around the golf and through the golf and things like that are very, very doable. We just need to make sure they're not interfering with the purpose of the golf course. So like cart paths on the golf course, we don't necessarily want horses riding down them, but finding pathways around the golf course and through and to BLM, east, west, Highway 16 to Canada. I think that's all part of our vision anyway. Something that the Monument Ridge folks have definitely spoken about to us. Some of the Hillsdale folks have also spoken about that. So we'll as we bring individual phases of plats through, have to make sure that we're connecting that overall pathway plan to get you the connectivity you're asking for. And if we can back up, can we go to the picture of the three colors, the overall phase 1, phase 2, phase 3? So I just want to go back to Fire Chief's comment about some of the natural space that's not slated for development. So all of this in Star Ridge that's in blue, that kind of it's Willowbrook property. It makes all of this contiguous. A lot of that area is also undevelopable and isn't slated for change, but it is today natural grassland. It's steep draws. I just didn't want to, when Fire Chief asked about the Ada County side of the map, I want to make sure that we understand also there's some of that ground to the west of that in Canyon County.
It'll just be anything that's undevelopable, but that is going to be left natural. It'll just have to have a wildfire mitigation plan built for it.
Burn it once a year. Is that a?
Yeah.
But you got to plant natural grasses in there or native grasses instead of the sheet grass.
Gotcha.
Gotcha. Any questions of our Transportation and Pathways Committee on this?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Wheelock?
are we looking with the Willowbrook to have more connectivity into the BLM to the north? Is that something that the pathways could lead to that Willowbrook would support?
Yes, and I think that's been part of the conversation, at least for the last 5 or 6 years. Basically being able to connect the properties on the south side of Hillsdale and Monument Ridge north to the BLM property. I don't know that we'll have, I'm not at a spot where I can tell you we're going to have 4 connection points or we're going to have 3 connection points or what, but there will be connectivity where somebody can leave their house in Monument Ridge and find their way to BLM property without getting in a car. There's also with the road, if you look at the map in front of you with the orange line of the road across BLM property, we'll also look to develop some, call it a trailhead site, parking areas where people that do want to get in their car and come park at a parking lot and be able to use that, the rest of that 1,500 acres in the BLM ground can use it.
Okay. Yes, sir. You're gonna have to come up and speak in a microphone, so. It's part of our he's part of our transportation.
Yeah,
Pathways Committee.
Rich Gerard with the Transportation and Pathways. My question is, are you going to provide also trails for horses? There's a number of existing properties already in there that have horses and so forth. It seems like to me you may need a separate type of trails there for that.
No, I couldn't agree with you more. And it's one of the things we're frankly struggling with at this point is part of the Monument Ridge. So going back through the history of that, the 30 10-acre lots that are here. So that was Willowbrook Development's first development out here in the late 80s. They're equestrian properties, they're 10-acre parcels. With the golf course, trying to figure out how to get pathways up to BLM where we don't have people on horseback having golf balls hit at them. Like I mean, I'm horse and mule guy myself, would love to have a place to go up and ride. But we've got to be careful of how we mix traffic with golf carts and with horses and golf balls and everything else. So that's we're frankly trying to figure out how. And I think we've got 3 or 4 different routes we've looked at. We don't have anything that we've said that's the best one to do now, but we are still committed to finding a solution to getting horse traffic from south side of the property to the north side of the property, and not having it be I mean, even frankly, bicycles and horses don't do well together. Pedestrians and horses don't necessarily do well together. So and I'm like I said, we're going to do everything we can to find the right path for that. And frankly, trying to do that for every type of, whether you're pedestrian, your bicycle, your equestrian, your however we want to get you there, we're trying to get you there. Hillsdale folks have their equestrian center that's already close to BLM property, and we'll have to be able to figure out a path for them to leave there and get across to major roadway and into the majority of that BLM ground. But the 30 landowners in Monument Ridge are the struggle for us to find an equestrian path.
Okay, any further questions? So you guys don't have any questions of any of these folks? We're gonna be done for tonight. Are we good? Okay, I want to thank everybody, but I want to also thank Scott. I forgot to mention you, sir, for being here as well from Hillsdale. He's been here diligently, all 3 workshops as well. So thank you for having me. Yes, thank you. So thank you all for coming tonight and providing input on this project here. It's very important for the citizens of our community and obviously the developer and everybody to understand the impact. So I'm sure you're going to be hearing from our staff here shortly. So with that said, Miss Dana, what time is it? 7:48. We're going to adjourn the meeting.